Liu Xin, what did officials have to say?
Thank you very much, Gaz. Actually, it is a presentation made to a delegation, a visit by diplomats and ambassadors from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and other neighboring countries around China. For instance, we have diplomats from Central Asia. We also have diplomats from Moldova, from Azerbaijan, from Malaysia, Indonesia, from Maldives, from Bangladesh, and so on and so forth. So it's a 30-member strong delegation, and they toured for the past 3 days the capital city of Urumqi and then 2 other cities, including Aksu and Kashgar. So this meeting, this presentation, is actually a chance for them to get ahead, to get a comprehensive understanding of what they saw over the last 3 days, and to express their impression, to exchange their impression with the hosts of what they saw, what impressed them. But just now, still some very interesting figures were released, and for me, they are still quite impressive. For instance, Mr. Shokrat Zakir, who is chairman of the Xinjiang Uygur Autonomous Region, he talked about the economic development over the past decade. He was talking about per capita disposable income in the urban area jumping 2.4%, jumping 2.4 times, I should say, over the past 10 years, and that level was 2.8 times higher in rural areas, so it's quite impressive. Also, what impressed me was the level of compulsory education for the whole of Xinjiang and for the Uyghur majority southern Xinjiang. For instance, for the whole of Xinjiang, 9-year compulsory education has been provided free of charge for all residents, whereas in southern Xinjiang, it's 15 years of compulsory education covering all of the population. I think that is quite impressive. He also talked about religious education. He talked about Xinjiang having the Islamic Institute, which is a university-level institute with 8 different campuses, and they have 10 different religious schools as well. Every year they enroll hundreds or thousands of students. So these are some of the information that we haven't been able to hear so far.
Now, Liu Xin, you on the ground, what are some of your own observations?
Yes.
Liu Xin, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a very interesting, but before I go to what I want to say, I also want to say that what I heard, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yes.
Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. So I also want to say what the diplomats have been telling us. Yeah, I would also like to talk about what the diplomats have been saying on this meeting. The Secretary General of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Mr. Vladimir Norov, he was the head of the delegation, and he talked about his impressions, and he used several times the words that people can learn from the experience of Xinjiang, from the experience of China. For instance, he was talking about how connectivity was being stepped up so that Xinjiang can be integrated into the overall development of not just Western China, but also the Central Asian area. He was also talking about how factories in southern Xinjiang employ thousands of workers, the great majority of them ethnic minorities, and he said people can learn from that experience. He also talked about the poverty alleviation, saying this is something the world can learn from Xinjiang, and he also says China has good experiences to share with the other countries and other countries in the world in terms of Islamic, in terms of religious education. He talked about his personal experiences as well and compared what he sees as very impressive, that the variety of subjects the students in religious institutions are getting access to, not just religious scripts, but also literature, arts and Chinese laws or Chinese language and literature, so on and so forth. So a lot of positive comments coming from these group of 30 diplomats. As far as my personal impression, I think it is very diverse, and there are definitely much more than what people expect. For instance, yesterday I visited and I actually talked to a representative of the local Christianity Association. We visited a church, and this is something that people don't really know very much about, and it's one of the oldest churches here in the city of Urumqi, and they seem to be coexisting very well with followers of other religions here in Xinjiang. I also talk to people on the streets about their level of satisfaction to their life, varying degrees of satisfaction and grievances maybe, but the great majority expressed a positive impression of how they feel about their life nowadays. And of course, the unanimous message about the Western allegations about Xinjiang being, genocide or forced labor is these are lies, these are slander, these are from people hostile to China and want to hold back China's development. So my trip will continue, and I'll continue to talk to people of all walks of life to bring you more up-to-date reporting from Xinjiang. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Liu Xin. Liu Xin for us in Urumqi.